All right. Today I watch something a little bit different. Things I watch from one time. But me I go in is it an introduction? Alright, me I go start the video. Today we are watch oh wrong button. Debunking Mansa Musa, the biggest fraud in history with receipts. Okay. Mansa, Musa, okay. Let's go.
So a few days ago, y'all, I stumbled upon a very interesting video. Mansa Musa, the biggest fraud in history. It had over 800,000 views,
God,
over
the
40,000 likes. And after
shit. Alright, I'm switch it out.
watching it for just about 1 minute, I already knew that this would be a great video to debunk. Over these past couple of months, there has been a rise of this intellectual pseudoscience anti-black content. YouTube is literally turning into
is that a whole heap of things upon YouTube but me not know about it or not seen it. Gladly so, because I don't want to see them thing there.
Twitter. But in today's video, I am going to be debunking as much information as I can. I want to state this first and foremost. I am not that well informed on African history as I am with Black American history. Whenever he brings up a claim, I am simply going to search it up on Google and find the source behind it. But also to give me more leverage, I do have a friend who is very well versed in African history. So he's going to be in this video as well. I'm gonna have his page up right here. He is a very intellectual brother. He's better than me with African history. No more talking though. We're about to hop into this video. And listen, I want to be optimistic heading into this video, and I'm going to listen to what he has to provide. Let's get into it.
One of the most ridiculous fun facts which has spread across the internet in the last decade is the claim that Mansa Musa, the king of Mali in the 1300s, was the richest man in history who gave away so much gold on his pilgrimage to Mecca that he crashed the Egyptian economy. You've probably seen this repeated all over social media, including in Reddit posts, comment sections, on YouTube, and in history articles. If you go into Google and search out richest man in history or ask ChatGPT, Mansa Musa is the standard answer. So I think it's fair to say this supposed fact has become as much a part of common historical knowledge as the fact that Caesar was a great general or Einstein was highly intelligent. Normally I wouldn't care very much about idiots being wrong about something.
Alright, see, here we go, y'all. This is what I'm talking about. Hey, yo, we was rich and shit. So already we can establish that this video is not going to be...
I go fix something. Alright, I'm back. That this never take long. Definitely. But we'll continue the video. This is just more of a sit down and listen. One of them videos. I don't know too much. Alright, back. We're back. We are back. Let's continue the video.
To be made in good faith.
But the problem with the story of Mansa Musa is what people extrapolate from it, which has real-world consequences we'll discuss later in the video. As any person with more than a passing knowledge of history is aware, sub-Saharan West Africa was extremely primitive and underdeveloped compared to the rest of the world in the Middle Ages.
So after searching West Africa during the medieval times versus the rest of the world, according to The Dig at Howard University and History Extra, during medieval times, approximately 8th to 16th centuries, West Africa was a global powerhouse. While Europe was largely fragmented and agrarian, the great West African empires dominated international trade, amassed unprecedented wealth through gold and salt, and built renowned centers of Islamic scholarship in cities like Timbuktu. So after just doing a quick Google search, we can disprove that statement false already. But I'm gonna let my dog Lonnie hop in and say what he want to say.
So firstly, with the claim of West Africa being primitive compared to the rest of the world, we already know this isn't true, evidently, because some of the first Portuguese explorers to actually reach West Africa, the likes of Lorenzo Pinto, he stated that the Benin Kingdom, or the palace, the Obas Palace of Benin alone was larger than Lisbon. The city of Lisbon is Portugal's capital, and it has been Portugal's capital for over 600 years. So how can a primitive group of people somehow live in a palace larger than the capital of a European empire? Off rip, we already know West Africa wasn't primitive because many West African scholars traveled to Europe and did insane things. For example, Ibn Ali. Ibn Ali was a 15th century physician from Timbuktu Sankore University, the largest university in the world at the time. He mastered astronomy, medicine. He mastered everything that came to the human body, like anatomy, etc. And Ibn Ali, he traveled to France in 1430.
I think. So me hear about them people what did I do. Think could hear about the library, but regardless,
And he saved the life of the future French King Charles VII, who suffered from a violent fever that local French physicians could not cure. So evidently, West Africans were not primitive if they had all of this knowledge and the largest library in the world at the time.
Ambiguously sized African kingdom with backwards technology, no great cities, a small population, and limited productive capacity, stuck on the wrong side of the Sahara Desert. These people lived in huts made out of mud, had no written records or two-story buildings, and their metalworking was inefficient. And
once again, we got a source, Africa is country in Brunei. It says, yes, during the Middle Ages, West Africa possessed highly developed written traditions, while many historical societies prioritize...
embarrassing. If whatever you say can simply be debunked by a Google search, like, you don't even try, you just make the video for here.
As rich oral histories, the region became a major literacy and scholarly hub through the use of Arabic and indigenous scripts.
Now, a prime example of writing in West Africa is the Ajami scripts.
Right here it says, is a variety of Arabic-derived scripts used for writing African languages such as Songhai, Mandi, Fuli, Hausa. Like, this is stuff I didn't even know about as well, so I'm learning today.
Icon monoliths. Now, these are a bunch of ancient, large stone pillars and located in Senegambia, I believe, that has so many undeciphered glyphs that many scholars just do not know what it is. We know that it was an ancient type of writing system, and we know that these glyphs say something, but we cannot decipher them. He also stated that West Africa had no two-story buildings.
So, y'all, we just looked it up. Did medieval West Africa have two-story buildings? Yes, medieval West Africa featured a variety of impressive two-story structures. While most pre-colonial West African architecture favored expansive single-story compounds, the rise...
watch him video and probably not watch it because he's probably racist.
Of Sudano-Suhilian style and indigenous masonry traditions allowed master builders to construct prominent multi-story buildings.
So again, West Africa had no two-story buildings, also on multiple levels. West African elites would have most definitely had two-story buildings. I mean, in fact, a lot of West Africans would have placed their food, etc., at the second story. Because it was a good way to keep it away from, termites and different other animals, etc. Also, I mean, we know that West Africa had two-story buildings for centuries because the Ashanti Empire is a prime example. Even though this is centuries after the medieval period, we already know that the Ashanti Empire had indoor toilets and with flushing mechanisms, and these toilets were located at the on the second floor of buildings. And we know this because the 18th century British explorer Thomas Edward Bodwick, he visited the Ashanti capital of Kumasi, and he wrote that literally almost every single house in the city was two stories. And this was before Europe even had indoor plumbing. Europeans during this time period were still dumping their waste outside into streets and rivers, contaminating themselves. So, I mean, it's just evidently incorrect.
This video is hilarious. Now, what else did he say that we can disprove?
Mali population. The Mali Empire probably had a population from between like 10 to 25 million. That is not small.
So right here, y'all, we typed in the Mali population through the medieval period. We have two sources, blackpast.org and Historium History Forum. So cited sources. Estimates for medieval Mali Empire's population range widely due to limited census data, varying from 3 million to an upper end estimate of 25 million people at its peak around 1350. Modern scholars suggest a modern conservative and widely accepted total population of roughly 10 to 15 million for the entire West African region under its control. So 10 to 15 million people is a small empire? We only a minute 27 seconds in. And he also stated he said they was using Stone Age tools. So right here, y'all, once again with a quick Google search, we have 4 sources: the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Y'all see the sources, right? Africa History Extra. By the medieval period, West Africa was firmly in the Iron Age. Metallurgists were already smelting and forging iron for tools, weapons, ceremonial objects. However, stone tools are not completely obsolete and continue to be used for a specific day-to-day task alongside metal.
Bro, the oldest terrestrial iron smelting site in the entire world is located in Nigeria in this ancient Igbo community of Lasia. By 2300 BCE, while the rest of the world was still in the Bronze Age, or some of the world was still in the Stone Age, transferring into the Bronze Age, West Africans were already smelting iron on a large scale. This is so false on multiple levels. When it comes to metallurgy, West Africans are probably the greatest to have ever existed. Not even just West Africans, Africans in general. I mean, by 500 BCE alone, the Haya people of Tanzania were already making high carbon steel in preheated draft furnaces.
The naval progress stopped with dugout canoes. They didn't have the wheel, or carts, or paved roads, and all of our knowledge of their affairs comes from a handful of Arabic travelers and historians.
You'd be more correct to say West Africans stopped at canoes, because a dugout canoe is simply a canoe built from one log. West Africans did not stop from dugout canoes. West Africans had planked canoes. Those are canoes that can go into the open ocean and do pretty good. But again, I mean, that's irrelevant because West Africans never developed a maritime culture. They never had to. They used the rivers. So this is irrelevant. And he said West Africans had no paved roads. Again, incorrect. I mean, the Titchin culture like 4,000 years ago had dry stone pavement.
All of this can be debunked with a quick Google search, bro. I'm being simple with it. My boy is very vast in his knowledge on this, bro, but we just gonna get into it simple. It says, yes, medieval West Africa had paved roads. While traditional long-distance trade across the Sahara and through the savannah utilized vast networks of well-trodden dirt trails and natural waterways, several forest and savannah civilizations built advanced engineered pavements.
West Africans did have paved roads. I mean, a prime example is the Lefe Kingdom in Nigeria. They made paved roads out of potsherd pavement. So they would make like different pottery and different like terracottas and pieces of these broken potteries and terracotta pieces. You know, there were millions of these pieces just left around, and the indigenous people, they decided to build paved roads out of these this material, and it was such an ingenious decision because it helps with soil erosion. Nigeria is very wet, very rainy, and streets can become muddy, especially in ancient time. But potsherd pavements, it quite frankly drains the water. Like, it holds the water in. So not only did roads become non-wet, they also became non-slippery, and trade just boomed. And as far as the object, we already know this is incorrect because, again, the Titchin culture 4,000 years ago has cave art showcasing them using the wheeled object and oxes. So it's like, what are we doing here? West Africans for a very long time did not utilize the wheeled object for transportation. That's true because they did not need it. This is something that a lot of Europeans just find so hard to comprehend, but intelligent people don't. And also, again, the wheeled object is not limited to the use of transportation. The wheeled object has been used for various different things. Hell, a pulley is a wheeled object. And again, we know that the Mali Empire in general had the wheeled object because here's Ibn Battuta himself speaking on a water wheel in the Mali Empire.
Capital of the Mali Empire was, or even if there was a permanent capital.
And we know
I guess a more apt comparison.
Sorry, but again, as I said, literally everything he's going to say is essentially a lie. We know the Mali Empire had a capital. It was Nyani.
And you was right, my brother. The capital of medieval Mali Empire was the city of Nyana. Located in present-day northeastern Guyana near Sakarani River, it served as the bustling political, commercial, and caravan center for over 300 years, flourishing in its zenith during the reign of Mansa.
Comparison would be a game of Civ where you never found a city and just walk around the map for thousands of years doing nothing until somebody else wins. Now, this might sound critical or mean, but it is the reality of the situation on the ground in West Africa, especially prior to the proliferation of Muslim Arab traders. All of this was common historical knowledge up until relatively recently, but it has become unfashionable to talk honestly about the state of sub-Saharan African civilization, especially in cultural institutions like schools and media. But this politeness has led to an environment where younger people will hear that the king of Mali was the richest person of all time and just accept it as totally plausible, which it isn't. So that's a bit of historical context.
Even, like, how you reach this? Like, why did you frame my mind to say, oh, man, me question this? What? A black man is the richest person in the world? Could never. I feel like that's a didn't frame my mind because how you even reach out to yourself? And seeing that everything I'm saying can be debunked with a simple Google search, that means I'm not even try. And this is just pure hate, dog.
But before we start examining specific sources to assess the truth of the Mansa Musa story, it's important we look at the origin and motivation for its spread. Like all lowbrow pop history, ignorant midwits on Reddit are largely responsible for parroting the claim. I'm sure they feel very virtuous when they tell their racist uncle that actually Africa wasn't always a hellhole. It was home to high civilizations like the Mali Empire and the fabulously wealthy king Mansa Musa, until evil white colonists pillaged the continent. It shouldn't surprise anyone then that the Mansa Musa myth was first introduced to a mass audience in 2012 by the ultimate pop history Reddit midwit.
So if you watch this entire video, this man is just going to consistently blame John Green for Mansa Musa being so widely known. And he's just so unintelligent, because what the hell are you talking about? John Green made that crash course video back in 2012 because Mansa Musa was gaining so much popularity around that time. That's why he made the video. And it's like in this video, he's trying to act as if John Green is the reason Mansa Musa is known, when in reality, not.
Musa, who ruled the West African Empire of Mali, and in 1324-ish, he left his home and made the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. He brought with him an entourage of over 1,000 people, some sources say 60,000, and most importantly, 100 camel loads of gold. I wish it had been donkeys so I could say he had 100 ass loads of gold, but no, camels, right. So along the way, Mansa Musa spent freely and gave away lots of his riches. Most famously, when he reached Alexandria, at the time one of the most cultured cities in the world, he spent so much gold that he caused runaway inflation throughout the city that took years to recover from. He built houses in Cairo and in Mecca to house his attendants, and as he traveled through the world, a lot of people, notably the merchants of Venice, no thought bubble, like actual merchants of Venice, right? They saw him in Alexandria and returned to Italy with tales of Mansa Musa's ridiculous wealth, which helped create the myth in the minds of Europeans that West Africa was a land of gold, an El Dorado, the kind of place you'd like to visit, and maybe, you know, in 5 centuries or so, begin to pillage. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So what's so important about the story of Mansa Musa? Well, first, it tells us that there were African kingdoms ruled by fabulously wealthy African kings, which undermines one of the many stereotypes about Africa, that its people were poor and lived in tribes ruled by chiefs and witch doctor.
I'm trying to pay off your loan.
Stop calling me. You sound like a psycho, I swear to God.
This video has over 5 million views on YouTube, and as educational material, it has undoubtedly shaped the perceptions. And the wonderful thing about this clip is it exposes the psychology prompting guilt-ridden white liberals and coping black people to latch onto the idea of a rich and successful black African kingdom. Luckily for us, the ridiculous story of Mansa Musa is very, very simple to debunk. West African history is an unusually accessible field due to the fact that so few primary sources actually exist. These sources are the travelers Ibn Battuta and Leo Africanus, and the historians Ibn Khaldun and Ibn al-Umari. There are later sources who mention Mali and Mansa Musa, like the Egyptian historian al-Makrizi, but their work seems to be substantially based on the other 4 men that I just mentioned, and they didn't have first-hand information. I read everything that these 4 sources had to say about Mali, which didn't take very long because they spent most of their thousands of combined pages of work discussing actually relevant and interesting parts of the world. I probably spent more time trying to find good translations than actually reading. We'll start with the traveler Leo Africanus, who allegedly went to Mali in the 1500s, which is already 200 years after Mansa Musa was king. This makes him a pretty poor source, but we can get some insight into what life was like there, and if the Kingdom of Mali was truly wealthy enough to have produced the richest man in history. Leo gives us a brief history of sub-Saharan Africa, beginning with,
the cosmographers began to acquire some details of these lands, where all the people lived as animals. They had no king, rulers, republic, or even any culture, and scarcely knew how to sow grain. They went about clothed in the skins of their flocks. A man had no particular wife, but instead, the men, women, and children of a farmstead would go together all day to work, pasturing their animals, and then return home at night together, around 10 or 12 of them, sleeping under some sheepskins in a hut. They did not go to war or leave their own lands.
He pretty much skimmed through and took some stuff out of context. So I'm going to put the actual document on the screen, and I'm going to let my boy Lonnie break it down.
This is a fabricated quote, because in the actual text, the start of the book to be...
That you never think so somebody, like, again, because nobody really did the whole people accountable like that. But something as simple as...
The exact Leo Africanus states are ancient chroniclers of Africa, to who al-Bakri and al-Musadi knew nothing of the land of Negroes, but only the region and Kano. I want to explain this, what this exactly means. So, our ancient chroniclers of Africa, al-Bakri and al-Musadi, those were some of the first Arabic chroniclers to actually write about West Africa. And Leo Africanus is stating that our ancient chroniclers of Africa only knew about the regions of Gushet and Kano. But off rip, this is already incorrect, because if you read through the works of al-Bakri and al-Musadi, they write about more regions than Gushet and Kano. Those aren't even regions they speak on. So, off rip, you should already be able to tell that Leo Africanus is very incorrect on most of the things he is going to say. This is why most historians do not take Leo Africanus seriously on the topic of African history, because he's just incorrect on literally everything. Leo Africanus was a good source on Africa during that time period, not Africa's history, not the history of Mali and Ouagadougou and all of the civilizations prior to it. This is, again, why most historians do not use Leo Africanus as a source on African history, but as a source on 17th century Africa.
Leo Africanus is a highly valuable source for the 16th century African history, particularly for North Africa and the Western Sudan. However, historians, other people that study history, they treat his work with critical nuance rather than taking it at face value.
Keep in mind that Mansa Musa's vast wealth is allegedly proven by the enormous amount of gold that he traveled with. This excerpt here from Leo Africanus is our first hint at the seed of truth from which the Mansa Musa myth has sprouted. West Africa in the Middle Ages did indeed have...
So what we get from that a while ago is the money you get the information from only credible pay a period of time after Mansa Musa them. So any information they might give, it would only be relevant, or it would only speak to civilizations after Mansa Musa time. Just as if me follow along properly. Even if them even true. Because as them said the history them deep with two, them take it with like 2 tablespoons or salt.
Massive quantities of gold. Before the Spanish began shipping it in from the New World, approximately half to 2/3 of the gold found in Europe and the Middle East originated from West Africa. At first, this sounds impressive because it implies that West Africa had advanced systems to facilitate gold extraction and trade. My first thought upon learning this fact was that there must have been structurally sound mines where organized workers with pickaxes toiled away in the darkness. For example, look at this diagram of European mines in the early 1700s. Now, I found this quite surprising, as all my other research on sub-Saharan West Africa seemed to contradict such complexity existing. However, upon further investigation, I discovered that this gold was not found deep underground like in Europe, requiring thoughtfully designed mines and skillfully crafted tools.
Even your talk like, oh, recording this, that, and this, and that, and oh, it have to be this, and like, you hear him talk?
Instead found in what are called alluvial deposits. Alluvial gold refers to gold which has been exposed by the flow of rivers or other natural events.
The man is so dumb. This picture is genuinely showing you the various different ways West Africans had access to gold, James. You have bench deposits, alluvial deposits, residual deposits, and lode outcropping. Alluvial deposits were simply the easiest way to collect gold because it was simply on the ground.
There.
James is trying to say Africans just stopped at the alluvial deposits. He's not smart enough to realize that picture is showing him the various different ways Africans obtain gold. He believes West Africans just obtain gold through alluvial deposits, which is false. And we know West Africa, well, the Mali Empire in general had mines, because here's Mansa Musa himself speaking on the mining industry in his empire.
An unlimited amount of the most valuable material in the world, protected from outside threats by a vast desert and with all the natural resources one could possibly want, they would have undoubtedly constructed a magnificent civilization. This isn't what the West Africans did though. They were content to allow Arab traders to profit from their incredible resources, trading their gold and salt for imported goods instead of developing local industries.
Now, y'all, this is from Leo Africanos, right? This is his source. This is from his passage through Timbuktu and Gayo during the Songhai Empire. Timbuktu was a major trade center connected to merchants from North Africa. The city's people were known for being welcoming to foreign traders, which helped commerce thrive. So it says important goods included salt imported from Gaza, horses imported from North Africa to Royal Cavalry, books and manuscripts which were highly valued and could sell for more than other goods. Timbuktu was also a major center of learning with many scholars, judges, priests, and doctors. These learned men were supported by government, showing that education and Islamic scholarship were highly respected. The city had a river port called Kabara on the Niger River, which generated significant tax revenue and contributed to Timbuktu's wealth. Now, Gayo was another major city of the Songhai Empire, located southeast of Timbuktu. It served as administrative capital of the empire. Important government officials, including secretaries, treasurers, and auditors, were based there. Like Timbuktu, Gayo was also an important commercial center. The passage portrays Timbuktu and Gayo as wealthy, well-organized urban centers of trade, government, and learning, challenging old stereotypes that pre-colonial West Africa lacked sophisticated cities or institutions. Timbuktu was especially famous for scholarships and book trade, while Gao functioned as the political and administrative heart of Songhai Empire.
For a time, they attracted intrepid foreigners who crossed the Sahara to build settlements and monuments, but once the New World gold made this trade redundant, the foreigners left and West Africa slipped right back into a primitive state indistinguishable from before they arrived. We've covered Leo Africanus, and our other traveller who ventured to Mali personally is Ibn Battuta, who was a Berber born in modern-day Morocco. He visited West Africa in the mid-1300s and met Mansa Suleiman, who was the brother and successor of Mansa Musa. Battuta is not particularly descriptive, but there are some interesting insights in his account. First of all, he writes about the significant gold and salt trade and the presence of foreign merchants. The ubiquity of imported goods, such as clothing from Egypt, is also mentioned. This all aligns with the claims of Leo Africanus. Unlike Africanus, though, Battuta gives us some insight into the character of the local black Africans. In terms of good qualities, he notes their Islamic piety and the lack of robbers accosting travelers, while negative qualities include cannibalism, hatred of white people, with Battuta counting Arabs and North Africans as white.
This is a prime example of James taking things out of context. To start, on the cannibalism, Ibn Battuta speaks on a pagan kingdom who arrives at the court of Mali, and King Mansa Suleiman gives them a slave, and they essentially eat the slave. I'm guessing this is some type of diplomatic envoy, but Ibn Battuta himself states that this was only for diplomatic purposes. Now, on the hatred of white people, again, he's just taking shit out of context. Ibn Battuta speaks on a pagan kingdom south of Mali, and this kingdom is called Yufi. Many historians believe Yufi to be Lefe-Efe, the kingdom we were just talking about earlier with the statues, etc. The kingdom of Yufi was known for killing any white man who entered. White men referring to the Arabs or the Berbers. Again, this has nothing to do with the Mali Empire. This is a fucking separate kingdom. So it's like, what are you talking about, James?
In terms of the general level of civilization, technology, and architecture, Battuta writes almost nothing. By itself, this is obviously not very useful, but when we consider that the rest of his work is filled with tales of the incredible cities, grand buildings, skilled craftsmen, and
Ibn Battuta said very nice things about China, but if you were to ask which one he enjoyed more, Mali or China, Ibn Battuta would tell you as he enjoyed Mali more. Ibn Battuta literally damn near passed out when he was at China because it was just too fucking much. He did not like the paganism in China. Like, what are you talking about? Yes, he loved how large China's capital was. He loved how efficient their bureaucracy was. But the nigga stayed in China for a few months because he just could not deal with it. It was too much going on. He did not like that shit. Prime example of the fact that the Chinese would burn dead bodies. He did not like that shit. Ibn Battuta did not like that. Like, he could not stay in China for long. And also, he hated the fact that the people ate dogs, etc. So it's like you're taking shit out of context to make it seem as if Africa was fucking inferior, when in reality it wasn't, you dumbass.
However, while it's important to debunk general exaggerations of West African prosperity and development, the focus of this video is whether Mansa Musa personally is the richest man in history, who gave away so much gold that he crashed the Egyptian economy. This claim originates from tales of his pilgrimage to Mecca, which he undertook in 1324. And our two best primary sources for this event are the Arab historian Ibn al-Umari and, to a lesser extent, the North African historian al-Khaldun.
These are not our two best sources. Al-Umari is a really good source. Ibn Khaldun is a pretty decent source. These are not our two best sources. Our best sources are the Tariq al-Sudan and the Tariq al-Fatash.
That means that in the best case scenario, there was over a decade between Musa's pilgrimage and al-Umari's investigation. But in the context of medieval history, this is about as good as can be expected. Al-Umari writes that Mansa Musa went on his pilgrimage with a large entourage loaded with an unspecified but enormous quantity of gold, which he spent so recklessly that the value of gold plummeted due to the massive surplus. Of course, we should immediately be a little bit cautious about drawing any definitive conclusions about what an historian records based on eyewitness testimony from an event 12 to 25 years prior. The tendency for ancient and medieval
Hey, I just want to say, it's funny that he's saying that, while at the same time uses sources from these men. He just contradicted himself so bad. He said we can't use these eyewitness accounts because it was years ago, but you want to use these sources of the Leo Africano dude and all of these other sources, but
historians and witnesses to exaggerate metrics like army sizes is well known, and in this case we have further reason to be skeptical. This is because the story of Mansa Musa appears in the 25-volume encyclopedia Masalik al-Absar fi Mamalik al-Amsar. These books are part of a category of Islamic literature called the Roads and Kingdoms genre, which has similarities to modern Western geographies but also key differences. One such difference is the concept of ajaib, which roughly translates to marvels or wonders. There was an expectation that these early geographies would amaze the reader with tales of miracles or larger-than-life figures, which means that telling a grand story often took precedence over communicating verified and accurate facts. As an example, in the same book which describes Mansa Musa's pilgrimage, Al-Umari claims that there is a stone in Syria with the power to magically cure fatal snake bites of anybody who lays eyes upon it.
This is where you should understand that James has a very fundamental misunderstanding of medieval historiography. He cannot comprehend the fact that medieval people wrote about crazy shit all the time, but it doesn't refute the fact that they also wrote about their real eyewitness experiences, you fucking idiot.
A trend that I quickly picked up on across all of the lists and articles covering Mansa Musa's wealth is that it is almost always recorded as incalculable or beyond comprehension. The reason for this is simple, and it isn't because Mansa Musa had so much gold that there are no numbers big enough to quantify it. The real reason is Al-Umari just didn't specify exact amounts when writing on the subject, and he is the source on which all other writings on Mansa Musa's pilgrimage are based.
He's incorrect because the first sources that we have on Mansa Musa, from Al-Duwadari and Al-Nuwari, they simply state that this nigga's gold was inexhaustible. This is why so many historians believe that his wealth is and we can't quantify it. Because most of these sources that we have shows us that this man had insane amounts of gold, to the point where even the Arabic chroniclers thought he had unlimited amounts.
To a precise number is that Musa brought 100 loads of gold, but this is both suspiciously even and also completely uninformative, as a load of gold can be almost any amount. The reason Al-Umari didn't record specific details, obviously, is because he didn't know them. After all, his own information came from conducting eyewitness interviews of those who had seen the pilgrimage 13 years or more prior, and obviously those individuals didn't actually count or weigh the gold which the Malian king brought with him. It's kind of like if you attended a massive Christmas parade where candy was being handed out by participants, and then 15 years later I asked you to estimate how many pieces of candy were present across all the baskets and buckets from which it was distributed.
A better example would have been someone passing out money. I think I would remember if someone gave me a fucking big ass stack of $100 bills, hundreds of. I would remember that. Candy. That's a bad comparison anyway. What are you talking about?
Confident claim under those circumstances is obviously completely impossible. Musa's wealth is incalculable, but only because we have no specific information about it. This being the case, it's insane and irresponsible to extrapolate from this historical footnote that Mansa Musa was the richest man ever. Aside from the general claim that Mansa Musa brought a lot of gold with him on the pilgrimage, there is another detail of Al-Umari's account which has been used to support the idea that Mansa Musa was incredibly wealthy. What Al-Umari says is,
This man flooded Cairo with his benefactions. He left no court emir nor holder of a royal office without the gift of a load of gold. The Cairenes made incalculable profits out of him and his suite in buying and selling and giving and taking. They exchanged gold until they depressed its value in Egypt and caused its price to fall. Gold was at a high price in Egypt until they came in that year. The mithqal did not go below 25 dirhams and was generally above, but from that time its value fell and it cheapened in price and has remained cheap till now. The mithqal does not exceed 22 dirhams or less. This has been the state of affairs for about 12 years until this day, by reason of the large amount of gold which they brought into Egypt and spent there.
conveniently for us, one of the leading experts on Mamluk Egypt's monetary history, Professor Warren Scholes, wrote a paper on this exact subject, creatively titled Mansa Musa's Gold in Mamluk Cairo. The paper isn't particularly long, so I suggest reading it if you're interested in all the details. But essentially what Scholes shows is that the claim of Mansa Musa's pilgrimage significantly decreasing the price of gold for a long period of time only appears in a single source, Al-Umari, and is contradicted by other historical data that we have about exchange rates at the time. Supposedly, the exchange rate fell from 25 to 22 silver coins per gold coin, but our other sources show that a 20-to-1 exchange ratio was typical for the time preceding and following Mansa Musa's pilgrimage. Additionally, Scholes points out that the alleged price fluctuation of 3 silver coins is well within the normal variance at the time, with changes in price driven by geopolitical events like the Mongol capture of Damascus, or even just ordinary price speculation. To use the Mongol conquest as an example, the price of gold plummeted from 25.5 to 1 to 17 to 1, before rebounding to the stable and typical 20 to 1 exchange rate. There are sources which say the price of gold fell in 1324, but evidently there was no long-term effect, and attributing something complex like currency fluctuation to a single event is almost certainly an oversimplification. This quote from Scholes nicely summarizes the issue, and reveals the warped perspective of undergraduate students compared to the far less impressive reality.
As someone who works on the monetary history of the Mamluk Sultanate, I had come across several mentions of Mansa Musa's pilgrimage in the Mamluk-era chronicles. However, it was only when I began teaching the World Civilization Survey that I became aware of the prominence given to this event in the textbooks, for it is rarely mentioned in the common English language surveys of the medieval Muslim world that one might typically use in an Islamic history survey course. Yet as far as I have been able to determine, only one Mamluk source, Al-Umari, mentions that Mansa Musa's gold was the cause of long-term drop in the value of gold. When this account of long-lasting devaluation is carefully compared to the wider selection of the available Mamluk sources, a different picture emerges. Far from being a unique cause of a drop in the value of gold, a review of exchange rates provided for Mamluk Cairo reveals that the Mansa Musa episode was but one of many short-term fluctuations recorded for the first half of the 14th century.
I've got to say, it was nice to have an actual academic come in and confirm for us that the tale of Mansa Musa crashing the Egyptian economy is unserious pop history propagated by ideologues like John Green, who are more concerned with...
James, you are so unintelligent, you can't even comprehend the fact that Scotes made that paper years before John Green made his Crash Course video. This man is very fucking dumb. But yeah, James, Scotes is not agreeing with your dumbass. He's simply arguing that we do not have enough evidence to claim that Mansa Musa disrupted gold in the Middle East for a long term. He's not agreeing with your dumbass that Mansa Musa was a fraud or broke. In fact, Scotes would probably tell your dumbass that Mansa Musa was one of the wealthiest men of all time. He's simply telling you we do not have enough Mamluk records to support this claim that Mansa Musa devalued gold in Mamluk Egypt for years, for a long term.
Yeah, we have been sitting here watching this shit for an hour and 55 minutes, and this is brutal. I do want to end this video off by confirming multiple sources. I'm going to put them in the description. Just confirming that Mansa Musa is regarded as the wealthiest man alive by many notable historians. So don't listen to some guy off YouTube who is sitting in his mother's basement. These people don't amount to anything in their lives but relishing off of what their ancestors did. Whole time their ancestors were fucking peasants. That's it though. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see something similar to this, go watch me debunk another loser on why Black America is like that.
Oh yeah, me did watch that. But that was the video, guys. That was the video. More informative, more me just sit down and listen. Hopefully listen and learn something as well. Him just racist. And him a try like pretty it up. But guys, look, see, a black man are never the richest man back in ideas. Like how that benefit you? No, him gonna say, no. You must spread misinformation and this and that. And everything him say can be easily debunked by a Google. A simple Google search. And the people them when must say, oh, them people that support my whatever. Them people like support him. The one in the last water ago, the man say, the man not with that say, yo, him agree with your full statement. The man just say, we don't have enough information to prove say, I this some money make gold drop or him they make gold drop for a while or whatever. Or they just regular thing we are going back in the days. So we can prove say, oh, him did flood the system with so much this and that. But racism and him thing there. But great video. Sit down and learn something today. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.